This multigrain bread is so good you'll actually make it. Once you get started, you'll keep making this bread for yourself. We make it every single week, and it saves us a lot of money. At the bakery nearest to us, a similar multigrain bread costs a whopping $8.50 a loaf. We were able to make an even healthier loaf ourselves for only $2.10. We save $6.40 on every loaf. Over a year, that comes to $332. Start with dry yeast. It's important to check the expiry date because if it's expired, it won't work. Pour the yeast into a medium-sized bowl. We strongly recommend you weigh all your ingredients if you bake regularly. It's the most accurate way to measure quantities. Add warm water. Mix with a spoon until the yeast has dissolved. Wait 5 to 10 minutes for the yeast to become active. Add whole wheat flour to feed the yeast. This combination is what's known as your starter. Mix until well incorporated and a dough is formed. Cover and leave to rest for 45 minutes in a cool place. In a large container, add water. The water must be at room temperature. Add the starter into the container. We wet the spatula before adding the starter to make it stick less. Mix until the starter is dissolved. Then add whole wheat flour, all-purpose flour, and mix until well incorporated. Use a spoon until the dough is incorporated enough so it doesn't stick to your hands. Then form a rough ball with your hands, like this. Let rest at room temperature for 2 hours. While the dough is resting, prepare your seeds right away.
That way they have time to hydrate.
In a medium-sized pot, add sesame, flax, buckwheat, sunflower, and pumpkin seeds. You can use whichever seeds you want in whatever quantity you want, but not more than a total of 100 grams. Place the pot on medium heat and jiggle to mix until the seeds are lightly browned. Toasting the seeds improves the taste of your bread. Add water, then cover and remove from the heat. The seeds need to come to room temperature before you add them to the dough. We eat 2 loaves of bread a week, so we end up saving about $660 a year. The money we save by making our own bread is enough to send Guillermo to Mexico City once a year. Adios, Guillermo! When your bread has rested for 2 hours, add water and salt to the seeds and mix to dissolve. Then add them to the dough by pressing them down gently. Fold the dough over the top to about halfway across. Then do the same on the other side. Twist around to make it lengthwise and repeat the process, adding seeds as you go. After folding twice, gently stretch the dough and repeat the process, folding and stretching, like this. Flip the dough so the ends are folded under and let rest for 45 minutes. Wet your hands before each fold and stretch. Here we show you how to fold and stretch the second, third, and fourth time, with 45 minutes in between each time. The process is similar each time, but the dough feels more elastic as you progress. The fourth time, check for air bubbles with your fingers and pop any that you find by pinching them. Large, unpopped bubbles create holes in the baked bread. The technique is similar each time, but every time you start a new fold and stretch, the dough feels more elastic. Each time you open the container, start by flipping the bread so the seam is facing upwards. Each time you finish stretching and folding, the dough will be firmer. That's why you need to let it rest for 45 minutes after each session of folding and stretching. To prepare your baking dish, add a drop of vegetable oil and brush it all over. Sprinkle a little water over the dough and place on a flat surface with the seam up. Sprinkle more water and flatten and stretch to lengthen. Now roll the dough, again checking for air bubbles and popping any you find. Fold the corners inwards and roll to make a cylinder. With the outside of your hand, push under the roll to make it as tight as possible, repeating each time, like this. If you like our video, please show us by clicking on the thumbs up. It really does help our channel. Lift the loaf and place it into the baking dish with the seam down. Place in a plastic bag and refrigerate for 10 to 12 hours. Remove from the fridge and let rest for 1 hour before baking. Preheat the oven and remove the plastic bag. Later on, we'll show you a trick to help you easily slice the bread. After you put the bread in, immediately reduce the temperature. Bake for 15 minutes. Then reduce the temperature again and bake for another 15 minutes. Remove from the oven and check the temperature. If it's lower than 93 degrees Celsius, bake for another 5 minutes or until the internal temperature is 93. If you don't have a thermometer, insert a toothpick, and if it comes out cleanly, the bread is ready. Let cool for at least 45 minutes. Now it's time to remove the bread from the dish. Cut around the edges, then insert a spatula and press up to free the bottom. We have a trick to make it easier to cut the bread. If you cut it now, the bread is quite soft, so it's a bit tricky. The trick is to freeze it for 4 hours before slicing it. At that point, the outside of the bread is hard, but not the center. This makes it easy to cut cleanly and evenly. We store ours in the freezer and eat it as toast for breakfast every day. We're showing you how to make 1 loaf, but we usually double the recipe and make 2 loaves.
Yummy. Oh, it's very fluffy and soft. Yeah, and yummy and salty. Yeah.